Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 196, Monday, September 18th, 2017. Thank you so much for tuning in. Alrighty, well, start off with something kind of funny today. How about that? This is something I'm sure a lot of you have already seen if you have a Twitter or Facebook account because it's all over the place. But in case you didn't hear about this is pretty funny regarding the Rotten Reverend Clinton. Apparently the Rotten Reverend went to a Costco to sign some autographed copies of her book. So they got her sitting there next to the milk section, and she's signing books and things like that. And apparently a group of people, as they were walking by, started chanting "lock her up" and various things like that, and they had to be escorted out of the store. At the same time, you had some, I guess, Trump supporters outside the store who heard she was going to be there, and they're outside, of course, with their Hillary for Prison signs, calling for Hillary to be sent to prison, which is where she belongs and hopefully where she will eventually end up. But it's just funny if trying to picture Hillary Clinton in the milk section of a Costco. I mean, that's getting pretty low right there. I mean, when you're at the Costco trying to peddle books in the milk section, that's pretty rough. And of course, when you're getting heckled the whole time, that's even funnier. And also, there was an employee who talked to a local reporter, and the employee told the local reporter that a lot of people had canceled their Costco memberships when they found out they were going to allow the Rotten Reverend to come there and sign books. So probably not a very good business move for Costco, and I'm not sure how good of a PR move that is for the Rotten Reverend to be sitting in the milk section of a Costco. But that's how bad things are for the Rotten Reverend. I expect she's making the most out of this launch of her new book, but it's not going to help. That book is already was marked down 40% before it ever went on sale. It's getting 1-star or less reviews on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and I expect by the end of this week upcoming, that book will not even hardly even be selling at all. It'll be in the cutout section, and you'll be able to pick it up for $1.50 if you still have any interest in it, which I don't know why anyone would. Most people, from the latest polls I've seen, including Democrats, just want her to go away. Go away. Rotten Reverend. She's got a lot of problems. You know, as I'm doing work on the Imran Awan thing, almost every time that you start looking into Imran Awan to try to find out more about what's going on, following Luke Rosiak, which we have some breaking news on that today, I'm constantly seeing this picture which shows Imran Awan standing next to Bill Clinton. So obviously, if they wait a minute, okay, so Imran Awan not only was, of course, involved being Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz's go-to IT guy, and also the guy who apparently was doing dirty IT tricks for her against Bernie Sanders. No telling what else he does. But apparently he's also got some association with the Clintons. Does that surprise anybody? Does it surprise anybody? Remember, Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz was Hillary's campaign manager when she ran against Obama. She's, of course, a Hillary Clinton lackey. So, it's just that the Clintons, it's like every time there's some corrupt scheme, some criminal activity, something that pops up, you see either Bill or the Rotten Reverend somehow was association to these people. And of course we know it's one of the Clinton lawyers that is handling the case for Imran Awan. So the Clintons must have something they want to protect, and we're just going to have to wait and see. This story is just crazy as hell. And you are now starting to see it's been ignored by the big mainstream media. For the Washington Post, the New York Times, and all the liberal websites have been ignoring the Imran Awan affair, but now they are starting to cover it. But I'll get to later in this video. I'll get to later how they're doing that. But anyway, the newest breaking news on Imran Awan is that apparently Luke Rosiak, who's really the reporter that broke this story, who's been following this story, is now reporting that his sources are telling him that the FBI has discovered that Imran Awan apparently owes about $100,000 to an individual who is on the State Department's terrorist watch list. He is apparently a ranking member of Hezbollah. Keep in mind, Hezbollah is essentially a proxy army for Iran. So here you have Imran Awan in debt up to his eyeballs to this Hezbollah terrorist for 100 grand. How do you think he's going to raise the 100 grand to pay off this Hezbollah terrorist? I wouldn't want to be 100 grand in debt to a Hezbollah terrorist. How about you? But Imran Awan apparently is, and I imagine this is what's probably got the attention, as well as many other things, of the intelligence community, the FBI or whoever, wanting to know exactly. It's not a good position when you're Imran Awan, if you're the government, you're looking at this and you know that he's had all this access to classified information, certainly, because there are members on who he performed IT services for who are on committees that deal with classified information. Now he's 100 grand in debt to this Hezbollah terrorist. You know, it's just a logical conclusion to make that he might be looking to make a little extra money to pay off that debt, and he's sitting on all this classified information and he's needing some cash. I mean, your mind doesn't have to drift too far or work too hard to figure out what you think his next move might be. So this is just more of the Imran Awan thing as it continues to get, as Moore would say, drip, drip, drip. Little bits coming out every day almost about Imran Awan and what's going on. I imagine we're going to get somewhere near the bottom of this fiasco at some point. But as far as we know, the latest that we've heard and understand is that he and his wife are looking for a full immunity deal. To get a full immunity deal, he's got to have something. He's got to be dropping on somebody. He's got to be turning over a bigger fish, or they would already. Of course, they're still investigating him, but they certainly wouldn't be talking about any immunity, not for this type of stuff. And it's also, we learned a couple weeks ago that he also apparently has had communications with the Muslim Brotherhood, and that he may have some connection to the Muslim Brotherhood. So, you know, this is a tangled web, and I imagine why that's taking some time to figure all this out, to assess what they're going to charge him with or what kind of a deal they're going to cut, is because there's just so much to look into. I mean, and what he and his family members and other people around him have been involved in. A lot of very shady stuff going on with this guy, and, you know, we're just going to have to see how it all shakes out. But every day it's something new that you learn about this that stinks even more. Okay, so it's been so much breaking news for the past week and a half. We literally have not even had a chance to talk about the most recent emails that were acquired. Of course, we talked a few weeks back that the ACLJ, the American Civil Center for Liberty and Justice, headed up by Jay Sekulow, as well as Tom Fitton at Judicial Watch, had to go to court to get subpoenas and go to court to try to win this case, to get their hands on more of these emails that were being handled on a private server that are not Hillary emails, but were Huma Abedin emails, but were being filtered through the unsecure private server of the Clintons. So now they've won the court case, and they have now received, it looks like, 1,617 new emails. And these were found on a non-state.gov account of Huma Abedin, which includes 97 emails that were not turned over to the State Department, bringing the total to at least 627 emails that were not part of the original 55,000 pages of emails that the Reverend Rotten's lawyers turned over to the committee. Now, the new emails that have been discovered came from an unsecured server and do contain classified information. Again, if this was you or me, they already would have sent the FBI out to arrest you. The fact that Huma and the Rotten Reverend are still walking around free is amazing. So these new documents also show Clinton donors frequently requesting and receiving special favors from the State Department that were connected to Clinton. Also, on many occasions where Clinton donors actually used contacts through the Clinton Foundation to get access to the Rotten Reverend's State Department. So this is exactly what many people suspected is why she had the private server, as well as Huma Abedin and others using these non-secured private non-government servers. And it's also why she had her lawyers go through all these emails and delete the ones that they didn't want us to see. It's because these emails clearly are emails which clearly show that the Reverend Rotten and her chief of staff, Huma, as well as other people, it appears, Podesta and others, were having communications with big donors who were donors through the Clinton Foundation, who were using their status as big donors through the Clinton Foundation to get access to the Rotten Reverend's State Department. So this is exactly what they were trying to cover up, and they now have these emails. So Senator or AG Sessions, he's looking for some crimes. There's lots of crimes. Well, here's some more crimes, Senator Sessions. And the evidence is right in front of your face. Clearly, if the ACLJ and Tom Fitton's group can get these emails, certainly Sessions already has these emails. They know what's going on, and you just got to scratch your head and wonder who's protecting them. Why are they being protected? It's just, none of this is making any sense, my friends. I mean, these are smoking guns. Even one email showing that a Clinton donor used their status as a Clinton donor to the Clinton Foundation to gain access to the State Department to get a favor granted, that is a hot smoking gun piece of evidence. Now, maybe there are investigations. Maybe Sessions is looking into this. Maybe the FBI is looking into this. Maybe the DOJ is investigating this. Maybe it's all happening and we just, we're just not being made aware of it. Maybe this will all, bottom out at some point. But when you continue to get day after day this constant drip of evidence, hard evidence, and you just don't see much moving, it just makes you scratch your head and wonder what in the world is going on in the swamp. Certainly nothing that has anything to do with justice, law and order, crime and punishment, accountability, equal justice under the law, all these things that the Attorney General Sessions tells us he's a believer in, he trusts to do, to carry out justice. It's the thing that drives him. It's his passion. My oh my, the eager beaver, the overachieving Attorney General, doing my very, very best to give him the benefit of the doubt. But I have to tell you that I don't have a lot of confidence. My confidence is being rattled in the Attorney General. The emails show that Huma and the Rotten Reverend violated. This is from Judicial Watch. This is their statement based on these emails. And oh, by the way, how do they know a lot of these emails are classified? Because in addition to what they can read that is actually not blacked out in these emails, there is a tremendous amount of information that is blacked out, entire pages that are redacted or blacked out. And these came on a private server with government information. Well, the very fact that this information is blacked out, and is tells you that it's classified information, which means it never should have been on a private server. The types of things being discussed were State Department business, should never have been discussed on a private server. And certainly should never have avoided detection if there was a real investigation by the dishonorable Mr. Comey. The dishonorable Mr. Comey, man oh man, has he got a lot of questions to answer. You wonder when someone's going to start asking. It should be in a grand jury hearing, not in a congressional hearing. Mr. Comey needs to be arrested. So anyway, Judicial Watch's statement is that the emails show that Huma and the Rotten Reverend violated laws about the handling of classified information and turned the State Department into a pay-for-play tool for the corrupt Clinton Foundation. Jeff Sessions, it's time to lock her up. And Huma too. Unbelievable. Judicial Watch has also received thousands of emails showing the Obama administration abused a program that was created to help struggling homeowners. This program was called the Hardest Hit Fund. It was a multi-billion-dollar program launched by Obama to help families hit by the housing crisis. But Judicial Watch has learned that hundreds of millions of dollars of that money was squandered on parties, employee bonuses, cars, and superfluous data storage. The program was operating under the Department of the Treasury. The Department of the Treasury. Well, that shouldn't surprise us. My oh my. So you've got proof that the Obama, it's not just, the Rotten Reverend and Wasserman Schultz and all these other people running these scams on people. And think how cold-hearted a son of a bitch you have to be millionaires like these people are, like an Obama, like a Rotten Reverend. And we saw what the Clintons did to those poor people in Haiti, the way they can set up these charities and then just steal the money. Here you have the Obama administration doing the exact same thing, setting up this fake fund that was meant to help all those people who really were hurt by the housing crisis. And you have Obama's goon squad and his folks over there at the Treasury squandering all this money, essentially stealing this money, using it for purposes that for it wasn't intended. Probably very little of this money actually helped any of those people. This is what these scumballs in Washington do, and people like the Clintons. They set up these programs, government programs, private charities, and then they loot them. They set them up and then they loot them, and they're above the law, so they never have to worry about getting caught for the crimes. Obama right now is laughing hard. He's a multi-millionaire. He's probably going to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars in a very short period of time. He's out vacationing around the world. He's doing all this stuff. Guy will never have to hit a lick in his life. He has never hit a lick in his life. He's done nothing but suck off the government teat and steal money from poor people. Makes you want to vomit. Sorry if you're eating. We're learning a little bit more about Dana Rohrabacher and what he's talking about. As you know, I've talked a couple times on this subject about Assange and him trying to work out this deal with Trump, whereby Trump would grant him not immunity, but he would pardon Assange in exchange for proof that Assange could produce that shows that the Russians were not the source of the DNC leaks or the Podesta emails, and they would prove this, to the Congress or what have you. And I talked about the fact that I was surprised that Rohrabacher or Assange would think that something like this, particularly at the time we're at now, it would be such a politically difficult thing for Trump to do, that I'm surprised that they would even approach him with this offer, knowing just how difficult, nearly impossible politically this would be. And that's why I've suggested that Julian Assange should just go ahead and get the truth out. And that would probably get the administration or whatever, at least get them off his back to a certain extent, as far as certainly in the case of accusing him of working with the Russians to affect the 2016 campaign. This would at least get him off the hook for that charge. And of course, he's already been let off the hook by the government of Sweden for the rape charge. So really the only thing that's keeping him as a prisoner in that embassy right now is the fact that the U.S. has a problem with him leaking information, or publishing, I should say, information that was harmful to the U.S. government, particularly the DOD and the Pentagon, and releasing, of course, that footage from Iraq of the helicopter gunship shooting those people, and Abu Ghraib and various other things. So anyway, these are the real problems they have with Assange. But now we're learning a little bit more, is that, which now starts to make sense, is that apparently Assange is willing to come off of that information now, and but he's not expecting Trump, understanding his situation, not necessarily expecting Trump to do a quid pro quo and say, yes, you give me the proof, I give you, I relieve you of your ordeal as being a prisoner in the embassy. We're going to drop the charges or what have you. Apparently Assange and what Rohrabacher are talking about is that Assange would come off this information and show us the proof that the Russians were not the source of the leaks that came to WikiLeaks, and that Assange would expect, I guess, to be have his charges dropped against him or his investigation against him dropped by the U.S. But he doesn't expect Trump to do it now. He's apparently willing to wait until Trump is in his second term or sometime before he leaves office. If he were to be defeated in his re-election, then he could do it in his last week or two, or maybe he wins, hopefully, his second term, and before his second term ends, then he would do the pardon of Julian Assange. So Assange is not expecting the pardon to occur at the same time that he gives up the information. He's willing to wait for the pardon. He just wants the assurance that the pardon would come. So this is starting to make a little more sense now. Okay, so I kind of get it. Now, the Washington Post, as I told you earlier, you are starting to see the mainstream print media particularly, and I imagine the broadcast media will be right behind. They are realizing that the Imran Awan story is just too hot and that too many people are talking about it, and they're out in the cold. They're just not touching it. But now we are seeing, as the Washington Post today, I'm talking today being Sunday, did actually do a story. So they're giving the Awan scandal some play, but they are downplaying it. They are stating that that there was no espionage involved, and that the one-year investigation has yielded no charges, and that we also learned that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is paying her lawyer, who's representing her on this issue, with campaign funds for her upcoming re-election bid. Well, she probably isn't going to have very many campaign funds available if she's paying this lawyer, but my guess is she doesn't expect that she's going to be in that event anyway, and even if she is, she'll probably be defeated. I don't know how in the world she could possibly get re-elected with all this swirling around her. But essentially what you're seeing now is, okay, so now the lamestream dinosaur media is going to start covering the story, but they're going to go into debunking mode. They're going to play it off as this is a right-wing conspiracy. There's nothing to see here. All the things have been leveled against Awan are just trumped-up charges. They don't really matter. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz is clean as the wind-driven snow. She was just trying to help out the poor guy. This is how they're going to try to play it off. But it's not going to work, obviously, because of all that we do know. And the fact of the matter is, just common sense, it's nearly impossible for me to accept that the Department of Justice, as crazy as things are there right now and as many questions as I have about them, I don't see how it would be politically possible for them to offer pure, total immunity to the Awans and get nothing in return. I just cannot see that happening in the current climate. I mean, I just can't see it happening, but we'll continue to watch. But we are seeing now the lamestream media is attempting to cover the story. They're just going to cover the story and call it a right-wing conspiracy and try to debunk it, all the facts that are coming to light. Well, I did watch as much as I could take of Senator Wet Start Magoo this morning on Deface the Nation, and he did exactly what I thought he would do. He spent most of his time trying to sell more war and more weapons in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria. He spent a lot of time punking Putin and talking about Russia. But I got a few things I wrote down here. Magoo says that that there was Russian meddling in the elections and that it failed. That's interesting, because if the purpose of the Russian meddling in the elections was to elect Trump and stop Hillary, then it wasn't a fail, it was a success. But McCain said that Russian meddling in the elections failed. I'm going to have to think that one through. That's kind of, that's got some Orwellian stuff going on, because, you know, we don't know where John McCain's mind is. I think he's lost most of it. But he also said that Russia needs to pay a price for the Russian meddling. Okay, let's go through this. McCain sends his guy over to get the dossier, which was put together by Russian sources to destroy Trump. But McCain wants there to be a price paid for the Russian meddling. He was a point man involved in the acquisition of the dossier, which was sourced by Russians, but he wants the Russians held accountable. He was in the mix. He was a major player in procuring the dossier, which is connected, or information in the dossier, which is sourced by Russians. That means that Magoo himself was involved in collaboration with Russian meddling in the election. But he wants the Russians held accountable. I mean, how do you even follow this kind of thinking? Wet Start Magoo is obviously, when they went to remove the tumor, they must have removed 99% of his brain with it. None of this makes any sense. And of course, just as I told you, the liberal host did not question him at all about any of this. My jaw would have dropped when he said this, and I would have said exactly what I just said to you. But weren't you the guy who went to Russia to get the dossier, which was sourced by Russians to affect the election? And if you want the Russians held accountable, you're in the mix, aren't you, Senator Wet Start Magoo? Magoo also says that Russia tried to overthrow the government of Montenegro. That's just riotous, man. I think didn't we just talk about all the governments that we've overthrown, and we're currently trying to overthrow, with the full support of Senator Magoo, the government of Syria, the government of Uganda. We're currently trying to overthrow the government of Iran. We are, and we have been since the 1950s. So, I mean, the guy is insane. The guy's insane. And Montenegro, if the Russians wanted Montenegro, they would have Montenegro. There ain't a damn thing we can do about it, really, or would do about it. And I don't believe they were trying to overthrow the government of Montenegro. But we just talked less than 24 hours ago about all the governments that we've overthrown, and that McCain's been a part of supporting every bit of it. But if the Russians want to overthrow a government, that's horrible. No, it's great when Americans overthrow governments, but it's bad when Russia overthrows governments. This is the only way you can look at that. Oh, he also tells the liberal host on Deface the Nation that he now supports Trump. Yeah, he says, yeah, and he makes this crazy face like, I don't know why people voted for Trump. I can't figure out why the American people would have voted for Trump, but they did. They voted for him, so now he's the president, and so I got to support him. What a bunch of bullshit. You aren't supporting the president. You're working right now as hard as you can. Double, triple overtime to take down the president. Still working at it and trying to cover your ass, Senator Magoo, because you know that you're up to your eyeballs in the corruption. You're up to your eyeballs in the plot to take down the president. Still selling war with the Russians, blaming them for bombing hospitals. McCain can't believe Americans chose Trump. They certainly didn't choose him. McCain even says that there's more military people killed in training than in combat. I don't think so. Yeah, there are. We do get quite a few people killed in training. I understand that. I witnessed it myself. You do get people killed in training. The training is sometimes dangerous, but certainly you can't make the claim that you have more people killed in training in the military than you do in the actual combat. That's just an insane comment. But he's insane. Also, one other piece of information that's come up recently that hasn't gotten much play is that we now have information that Senator Magoo met with the Russian lawyer Natalia Veselnitskaya in December of 2015 in New York, and that she received a lucrative contract from the McCain Institute. Question: what did Veselnitskaya do for Senator Magoo in order to get this lucrative contract from the McCain Institute? What do you think she did? I wonder. Well, I'll let you all savor on that one and kick that one around in your head for a little while. See what you come up with. That's TowerGate, Monday, September 18th, 2017, day 196. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back with you tomorrow, and we'll see what the hell else happens in this crazy-ass swamp. My God. Thank you so much for tuning in. Good night.